Hello, and welcome to the Halloween edition. Thank you, Michael. Hi, I'm Greg Cleghorn. I am part of the Three Black Pratt grads. We're talking about Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. Pardon me, I'm having some dental implants going on, so if I drool, just chalk it up to Halloween. Today we're going to be talking about we okay. Let me finish the intro. We are three black grads from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, Fine Art School in the photography department. I'm Greg Cleghorn. This is my friend Kenny Nelson and Mark Skinner. And we've all continued to shoot throughout the years, and we decided just to have these little talks. And we're inviting you to listen in and join the conversation. If you have some comments, please feel free to send us a line, a note, or an idea for a future talk. Okay, today's talk we're going to be talking about composition 102. Now, we've all assembled a couple of some of our photographs that we think would be good for discussion, and we're going to start around with one of mine. This is actually one of my surviving thesis photos shot out at, I know Kenny would know this, out there at Reese Park.
Yep.
Down by the Fort Tilden side, the western part of Long Island. And I had a thing for windows at the time. Windows were like the portals, and a thing for threes also. For some reason, I find myself shooting recurring patterns of threes because it kind of ties a composition together. Now, in this one for composition, I had an interesting dilemma that a lot of photographers go through, and the shadow is there, but you're now part of the photograph. So I said, you know what? So what? I'm going to be part of this photograph. So I enjoyed the repetition of the threes, the three shadows, or the three. Is that a sun? The sunlight coming through creates the three, and then there's three windows behind that, and then in the distance, there's another building with threes in its windows, and I like that each window had a different view. It was like you know, before, during, after, or pre-production, production, and post-production. You name it. Past, present, future. There's something about triads, triangles, the pyramids. Hey, time fears man fears time, but time fears the pyramids. There's something about that three. It's stable, it's steady, it's a step stool. And in design, for me, I'm attracted to threes. So this is one of the things I got out of it. I guess if you look really close, you can see that I was sporting kind of a flat top at the time because that was the thing. So we can go on to the next photograph. Now this one, again, I mean, it just so happened it was happening across this, and it was I printed it a little dark because I just like the streaks of light and the reflection in the water. It's hard to see what it is, but when I was looking at it and thinking about the design wise and how it moved through space, I like the idea that it didn't have to have as much detail so that it could be, oh, that's a that, oh, that's a that, so I thought that would take away from the composition and the sorry about that, and the I don't know, mystery or the visual or emotional allure of the image, and to leave spaces dark for me. With I also have a graphic design background. Mark and I went to the same junior college, and we went studied advertising design and commercial design. And sometimes the brain will fill in things you can't see anyway. So I kind of wanted to kind of exploit that. So the lights and darks, I like the idea of the lights and darks telling the story, and at the same time not telling a story. so the viewer could make up his own narration or narrative. Um, but I do like the repetition. I do like the threes. I could let you guys jump in if you wanted to say anything about these two, or do you want me to just move on?
I was kind of wondering what the time frame was in between the two photos. You know, the first one is from your thesis, and how long ago was this one taken?
Oh my gosh, whew, that this one was taken about, wow. Okay, between the time that the first one was taken and this, wow, goodness, gosh, I'd say about 20 years. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to date it like that, but yeah, it was about 20 years. 20 years.
So is it safe to say that in some way, shape, or form you were thinking about this particular image when you shot this one?
Uh, Maybe subconsciously. I think it was partly ingrained in me. I've shot a lot of pictures that now that I go back and look at it,
Uh,
there is this repetition of threes. It may not be as stark as this,
right,
but I know as far as design concepts, when
right.
they say, shoot something, you have your dominant figure, subdominant, and a tertiary dominant. So, and where you place them in the frame, you know, using rule of thirds, where you position it in the frame will determine where the eye goes first. You
Uh,
know, and that's a critical design element and compositional element that you cannot get away with or get away from. You know,
yeah,
so I can't say that I was thinking about that one when I shot this one, but
right,
definitely the threes caught my eye for sure.
right. So what I guess is that the sensibilities, the visual sensibilities that you have, or began with, stay with you in some way, shape, or form, and
Mm-hmm.
they show themselves in various ways, in directly or indirectly. In this particular instance, it's quite directly.
Okay, I agree completely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The I mean, if something is instilled in you deep enough and you've worked with it long enough that you know that it works, you kind of see it. It kind of comes out at you when you see something. It's like, oh, you see the relationship between, one thing or another, or between one thing and another, and how they relate to themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I agree with that completely.
Okay. I'll have another question after we see your next one.
Okay, go right ahead. Now this one, it's kind of like my little buddy here. This is Herbie, Halloween Herbie. Okay.
Okay.
Um, this one again with the threes. I was walking down the street, and they were doing some construction or building it. A business had closed, and instead of boarding it up or covering it up, say coming soon, other whatever, or available for rent, they put these odd-looking paintings in the window. And when I approached it, one panel was reflecting the street reality, and the other panel was you could see through the glass to the artwork behind it, and it kind of moved for me, and I enjoyed the play of um, the the interplay of reality and painting, the flat and the deep space. Now I don't know when I look at this picture for myself. Excuse me. I almost don't want to explain what it is because the it's so unusual that I like to hear what people see in it before I say what it is. Because explaining it kind of takes away some of the mystery and some of the imagination. That's why another reason I don't put like titles on a lot of my photographs because what I see may not be what the viewer sees. But in composition, again, I like to play with interplay space. Two dimensions and three dimensions on a two-dimensional space. You know, the panel to the extreme left with a woman walking, you know, that's a three-dimensional space because you can see her with the fence behind her, and then the next one is this, you know, flat image of this cartoon character. I like to call him Green Casper, and he's you know, looking to the left, and then there's another panel. So there's like, you know, interplay between, you know, almost two different worlds. That's the way I felt. You know, the real world and, you know, the artistic world, and, you know, you decide which world you want to live in. But I enjoyed the threes again, and the interplay with space and color and all of that. So compositionally, as far as that relates to composition 102.
So I have a question for you. That
Go ahead.
Okay, now I was going to ask you the Green Casper style character. Is that a character that wraps around whatever the substrate is, or is it just on this side, or?
They were all flat, like flat canvases. He just goes into the space to, well, where his, if okay, if you say that's his right eye, stage right or whatever, his left eye would be just where it would be, and the rest of the canvas. But it's hidden by the plate of glass going to the, you know, left or right. That's causing the reflection. And again, that's a time of day thing. And at another time of day, you would be able to see through both plates, and that reflection wouldn't be there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, because I like the way that you've got four separate panels, it seems, but they're together in one frame.
Right.
Yeah, because each panel seems to depict its own sensibility about design and its own sensibility about composition, but then you've kind of placed them all together to create a fuller composition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I what I like that you don't often get an opportunity to shoot something that's other than two-dimensional. You know what I mean? In one image. I mean, yeah, sure. I could cut up a couple of photographs and, you know, jockey them together in Photoshop so that I could get this effect. But to see it in, you know, in life is kind of rare for me. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I captured it. And each
that is what makes it a photograph as opposed to an illustration of some sort, is it not? I mean, it may be illustrative, but it is, you know, the idea that you have this one capture, you were able to visualize this layered space and represent it two-dimensionally with the tool of the lens, and capturing that moment in time.
Correct and correct. I agree completely. It's fun. For me, it gives my eye. It's like a visual playground, you know, because I like the phrase scopophilia. It just sounds funny, but you know, the joy of looking. You know, where you could just stand if you go for a hike and there's just, you know, in the middle of Yosemite Park, or, you know, the Grand Canyon. Your eye is just, you know, you're in a visual shower, visual bath. They call it like a sound bath of visual wonderfulness, and you can just stand there and enjoy it. And I get that from this, because it's textured, layered to me. And that's my third bid for Composition 102. And if you haven't already, don't forget to vote.
Well, it's what people should go away with is, in a way, I would suppose, is it's all in the edit. And when we're presented with an idea, it's just a small amount of an idea from a larger set of images that you had. And so therefore, you've chose to give us a series of images that are related, but are not necessarily the totality of all the images that you've ever shot. So
No.
therefore, the all the other images, hundreds of thousands of images that you've shot over the years, do not conform to this standard or this composition, right? And so no one should go home or think about the notion that everything you shot is in this sort of fashion.
No, absolutely not. No. I
Right.
mean, what I wanted to get across is just you know, keep your eyes open. You know, keep enjoy the journey. Ah, I can't believe I said that. And you know, see what you see. Be open to seeing things. You know, be open to seeing relationships in the space. You know, things that remind you of things. The picture may not mean anything to anybody else but you. Um, but just keep your eyes open, keep shooting. You know, because it's visualization and being able to capture things in photography. It's like no other medium. You know, knocked or not. You know, I just get a kick out of the things that the way, like Mark was saying, the tool, the way the camera sees, you know, the way a lens changes a perspective, um, and then what you can do with it after you've captured it, you know, and manipulating just the basics, not make necessarily like Mark was saying, not making it a true photo illustration, even though it is after fashion, but not adding too much or taking too much. Just the basics. Like if you just like a photojournalist, you just all you could do is change the contrast, the brightness, and maybe touch up some spots on the image. But other than that, you know, it should be a clean image. The
Right,
thing,
and you can see the graphic influence. I mean, you tell you know you did study graphic design as well as photography, and particularly in that last image, you can really see that because it's like the different panels, like like the Thomas Crown Affair, the original one, you know, where they did, you know, meanwhile, you know, he's driving around and the guys are robbing the bank or the museum or
right?
whatever it is, you
Panels,
know,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then they have those split panels, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it was a graphic designer who did that. Guy named Howard Anderson. He did that, and he did the Brady Bunch, which we're all familiar with, if not from TV, from Zoom meetings.
Right, right.
But it's,
All the people.
but you know, but prior to everyone you know using these devices, it was a relatively sophisticated way of seeing. It still is, you know, to be able to see, you know, these four different things going on at the same time, all within one scene, and you're not splicing this together, you're just seeing this. And as Ken's mentioned, making that edit to capture only what makes the four panels work as one.
Yeah. And in a way, thanks for that input. That's big because you know who you are comes through what you do. Did I say that right? Yeah. So also, this is kind of in that vein. This is kind of a homage to you know Robert Frank and Lee Friedlander, who's one of my favorites. You know, the like a one-eyed cat. He liked to play with reflections and shadows in the reflection or shadows through a pane of glass, and he played with three-dimensional space in a two-dimensional medium, and it was just so visually fun to look at. Um, that this is kind of a little bit of an homage to that. Am I out of place, guys? What do you think?
No, I think you're right.
No, fine.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think that would do it for me as far as Halloween edition.
That's your outro.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Okay. Who's next?
It was your.
All right. I will take this over from Greg for now. And what my discussion or my point of view is actually very similar to Greg's in that you're using various planes and various layering to create something a visual interest. And what I want to talk about in my presentation is really just about foreground and background relationships and what happens and when well if you've seen a lot of landscape photos, some landscape photos over the past, what they'll do is they'll give you the landscape, and what they'll do is they'll place something right in front of the camera that's in frame that sort of creates a little bit of a tension with the rest of the scene that you're looking at. And so what I've been doing, or at least the images that I'm going to show you now, reference that in a city setting when photographing people. And so in this particular image, what we're seeing is a series of people in a row, in an order, and the depth of focus, or the one that's in focus, is the one in closest to the camera, where the ones that are not in focus are further away from the camera. And this is what you typically see in photography, where the closest thing to you is usually the one that's in focus. And that creates less tension than what you might see in one of the later images. And so therefore you're used to seeing this. And what happens with this is that, okay, you know that even though you read from left to right, the thing that is on the most left has no information enough for you to gaze. So you're immediately going to go around the image to look for something that is relevant, or at least in focus and sharp. And so that's the face of the woman all the way to the right. So therefore you immediately then start to go to the right, and then you're sort of pulled around the image to some degree just by that movement of wanting to start at the left and move to the right. But in this case, you're forced to go to the right because the right side of the image is in focus and the left side is not. I'll go to the. We'll just go through the series of images.
Wait.
I was gonna say, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can go first.
No, I like the idea that you're using focus as a design element or a compositional element, you know, and then having someone, I won't say uncomfortably close as the lead. It really pulls you to that person, but you can't help but see the other people, but then you're always drawn back. That's all I want to say. I like the idea of focus being part of the composition.
I was going to say the pre-computer age, those of us who spoke English as our primary language, we read from left to right, like in a lot of languages. And the big reward, I mean, even though this is a photograph, we like to think that we take images like this in at once. But I still believe that those of us who read from left to right tend to take in images ever so slightly from left to right. And the big reward at the end of this photograph is on the right side. That's the reward, is the figure in the front, and everything that's interesting about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this next one, it's actually kind of the reverse, where the interesting part is actually the thing that is not in focus, but the thing that is in focus is part of the thing that is of interest. So,
What?
If you look at this image, his shoulders are in focus, but his face is not. Okay. Because when I had set up this shot, it was already predetermined where I was. And so therefore, I didn't know what was going to happen, but he was awfully close. Okay, as you can see. And so the question was, in the edit, is the edit of keeping this in or never showing this is the key, right? Because his face is usually the main point of interest, but you can't really focus on his face.
Right, but you're forcing us though. It's uncomfortably close. He's out of focus, and as we go from left to right, we go this guy is so close.
Yeah, that is
and he's cropped, and and there's all the shock that goes into someone with that proximity to our gaze.
Yeah, and of course it creates the discontinuity of depth, right? Because you would think that the thing that's closest in focus is actually the closest thing, but actually the thing that's closest is not in focus. So you've got the front level, which is out of focus, the shoulders, which is in focus, and all the background that's out of focus again. And the thing that's interesting about this is, of course, if you're used to seeing things in the light, you're going to pay attention to the light as part of the frame, which is the shoulders, because that's the white. But you're guessing, is that all there is? And then no, that's not.
It's the nose. Good Lord.
No.
Wow.
So
the lack of a dental plan. Good Lord. Goodness.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. It's about editing and what you do. And what I tend to do a lot is, of course, when I'm photographing, is I include almost all the scenes, so I don't crop things out. All right. And when I photograph, whatever is in the frame is going to be in the frame, and I'm not going to really crop. For every 100 pictures I photograph, I intentionally crop into that 0.5% of the time. So 99.5% of the time, 99.95% of the time, I will not crop an image. And so what I do is I crop in the edit. So I will either edit what I like, or I won't show you what I don't want to show you because it doesn't work within a full frame aesthetic. In this particular instance, most people would say, what's the point of interest? Most of the point of interest, what people say, would again be on the right side of the frame with the two faces that are recognizable. But I would dare to say that the most point of interest is what's straight in front of you, all right? Because that what creates the tension. And you're looking at the back of someone's head, and you're going to say, okay, what is the reason for that? Well, the reason for that is the same reason that this image is there. It's to give you the tension and to give you a sense of place and a sense of place and structure. Where are you at? If I were to just crop that head out, you would take it as a different image, and therefore you would think differently about it, and it would be probably less tense, less pensive. But I left it in there because it creates the tension, it creates the space, it creates the tension of crowded spaces. And so that's one of the tools I use to make sure that I give a sense of place by keeping those things that are there. And of course, and again, when you're in this close space, there's nothing to do but think of how close you are because it is what it is. And again, using the same thing, foreground, background relationships, Go ahead, Greg.
If I could say something about the previous one.
Sure.
I just like the way you used the negative space, that she's so large in the frame. I mean, she's taking up like 2/3 of it.
Yep.
And then it kind of flows into him. He's got the same colors on. His hair is black. I like the negative space that she creates, and then it's repeated. So there's almost like a lyrical relationship between the one that you can't see. And like you were saying, she gives you almost as much information, about herself as he does without seeing her face. I think that's a really cool shot. And that's a different way of perceiving composition. And yeah, I like it. I'm in.
Yeah, and
it's like about perspective. It's really that person is closer to the frame, closer to the lens, so they're larger. The other one is, what Greg's talking about is sort of a mirroring of a shape.
Right.
Like I almost want to touch her hair. It's like, can I brush it? It's like it's so lush. I mean, it's you can see like every strand. It's like it's in itself very, very tactile, very rich.
No touching.
No touching. I know.
Yeah, and again, background foreground relationship thing, in focus, out of focus, creating tension, eye contact, things are moving. Just another tactic in the arsenal. And the thing about street photography is that I guess it's one of those true. You never know what you're going to get. And again, in most of the images that you've just seen, I'm not looking through camera when I take the photographs. Maybe except with the woman behind the head. So I'm not looking through camera here. I'm probably looking through camera here. I'm not looking through camera. I'm not looking through camera here. So these I'm not looking through. Only this one of those that you've seen, am I looking through camera. Everything else, I have the camera close to about my chest height, and I'm just aiming in the direction in which I think the lens is going to encompass.
So would you ever switch to a waist level finder for more accuracy, or are you so familiar with the throw of the lens, or the reach of the lens, I should say, that when you take your photograph without putting it to your eye, you know exactly what you're going to get or thereabouts?
Oh, you do not know what you're going to get. And that's why I think it's more about the edit than anything. So I would say that when you, in this particular instance, I have a wide angle lens on. I know what the areas that are close to approximation of what's going to be in the frame. And so with all this happening in front of you, and this is happening very fast, you don't have that much time to, compose it. You just say, okay, I'm feeling something that's happening here. I see this person coming close to me. They're coming towards me. And you're like, okay, click. And she may be my main point of focus. And it just so happens that this person on the left just happened to come in at the same time. Now, that could not have been my intent because I have no control over it. And what you then do is say, okay, is that an acceptable thing within the frame and within the context of the type of photography that you're doing? Absolutely, yes. Right? And so, right, Greg, here's the you seem confused, right?
Man, I did not
Okay,
think anybody could like lose me in a sentence, but you
okay,
got some. Woo.
Greg.
Well, I mean, I guess what you're saying is that with the you take your photograph, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get. You have an idea. It's like a sketch that you're working through the camera, and then when you get the images back, you edit, and so the edit and the capture work in tandem for your final image.
Absolutely. Because in this
Well,
particular instance, you have no control over what's going on in front of you, Greg.
okay,
Right? So
so
you
there's like a
have to just
chaotic
let
scene,
you just have to let what happens,
right?
right? And then based on your visual history and what your visual acuity is and
Uh,
what you think an image should look like,
right.
or for yourself, you will either accept the frame or discard the frame based on what's going on,
Ah, okay,
right? So I accept this frame as it is. Um,
got it.
right?
Okay,
Because it is a street. I had no control over that person coming in the left, and I had no control of anyone in this frame.
right.
So you have to accept what's going on.
But you got the finger trigger. You got the trigger control.
You do have the trigger control, right?
Okay, so
But
go
you
ahead.
don't. If I'm not looking through camera, I have no clue where this person
Where
coming in the
what
left
is? Okay,
occupies the frame. I have
got
no clue at all.
it. Okay,
So therefore, it's in the edit once you get it back.
okay.
And
I just got. Was there more? Where you have something else or?
yeah, I think I have one more.
No,
And
no, 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 no. I had no, no. Go back.
oh,
I had one
go
thing
back.
to say
Okay.
about this because I've been like looking closely and with my Halloween ball. No, but I've got to ask both of you guys now compositionally, and I love when somebody does that or captures an image. There's like someone told me I don't remember who it was or that you have to pay attention to what your eye does when it looks at an image. And for me, for this one, there's like this circular thing going on, and I absolutely love it because I go from the woman looking with the sunglasses, she's looking left into the frame from looking into it. And then there's a woman there, then another woman, and it goes up, and then her gaze brings me back here like a typewriter. And I'm doing this. Now, do you do that intentionally to get that motion, or does it's a great happy accident, or do you guys know what I'm talking about? I'm
This
sure you do, but just you because I love when I look at something and it goes in and my eye
Right.
does this thing.
There is a tremendous amount of visual interest, and that aids to the composition. I think the geometric shapes down at the bottom help break up a lot of the organic forms that are there, and so it gives us a real sense of dimension and depth.
Hmm. But it's almost like they're almost exactly in perspective opposite to the buildings going this. So the boxes bring you up to them, and then the building almost forces you back into that
yeah,
part of the frame.
yeah.
And then there's this thing going on. I really enjoy it.
I agree.
Hmm. Thank you. And this last one. Just again, what's interesting again is that your foreground is the point that's out of focus, where the point that is in focus is actually furthest from the camera, or at least further away from the camera. So the tactics that we use in street photography is to preset your focal point at a certain distance and allow whatever happens to happen at that distance be the point of interest. Greg?
You know, I thought I
Right.
was the smart guy. Your intellect is like making me dizzy.
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
Greg, that's not a difficult concept. You
I know,
focus,
but my
right?
brain is like it must be the pain meds. I swear, because It sounds like I feel like I'm in first grade and you're like working on your doctorate thesis, and I'm like,
Oh,
say that one more time.
me? You say it one more time?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Greg. Right. You preset your focus to a
Right.
certain distance,
Okay.
right? At a wide f-stop.
Okay.
So whatever happens at that plane,
Like 5.6 or something like that.
no,
No.
2.82.
Oh, wide open. Okay.
Yeah, wide open. Okay. So therefore, you have a shallow depth of focus.
Right.
So whatever happens at that plane of focus is the key point.
Right.
Whatever happens at beyond that or in front of that is additional to, but not the main component of what happens at the focal point.
Okay. Okay. Compositionally, got it. Okay.
Right. So therefore, this woman is the focal point because she is what's in focus. He's
Okay.
is sort of in focus, but these two people are not.
Okay.
Okay, so we have to accept the fact that these two are the objects or the subjects of the photograph.
Okay.
Okay, and these things happening around or added features
Okay.
that speak to the main things happening within the photograph.
Okay. Thanks for dumbing it down for me. I appreciate that. Wait. So do you ascribe to the idea of the dominant subdominant in the compositional aspect, or it just happens the way it happens? Because you capture chaos great in amazing ways, but I just was just curious.
Yeah, that's why I say it's mainly in the edit.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
because you put yourself in situations to photograph the things that you think could happen. You photograph either looking through camera or photograph without looking through cameras, not to disturb the action that happens in front of you.
Right.
Right. And so therefore, then when you go back home and you look at what you got, you say, okay, what do I think of this image? Is it visually interesting to myself?
Right. Right.
Right. And you go from there.
Okay.
Now I don't speak to the rule of thirds in when I'm editing. I just look at what appeals to me.
Right. Right. Because it's an eye thing.
Yeah. Yep.
What? Yeah. Okay. What
Okay.
your eye enjoys, like the scopophilia thing, even though the word sounds really funny. But
Okay. So to cut back on time, let's just switch over to Mark and get Mark stuff. Mark, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Cool.
Well, you know what they say about New York: the streets are paved in gold. The this particular,
yeah.
yeah, right. That's what it looks like. Well, or you could follow the yellow brick road. It depends on where your cultural references lie. In this particular image, this is really just very simply a photograph of part of a driveway. In this particular driveway, I'm using color, right, gold or yellow. The perspective from the lines going from the lower left to the upper right, and pattern. And that's just the composition of that entire photograph. It's very simple, very easy to understand. And that's really all there is to say about that particular image. We'll go to the next one if you like, unless you guys have something to say.
Yeah, I get the feeling of car tires.
It makes
Car
that's funny.
tires?
Yeah, the tread.
Yeah, tire treads. Yeah, thank you, Greg. That's what I
It
meant.
to me, it kind of does two things because at first I see like rope,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
then that those crazy optical illusion things where you blink and it's one
Yeah.
thing, and you blink again. Right now, I'm blinking at it, and it looks like steps.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know, and I'm really getting a kick out of that visually because it looks three-dimensional almost now. But yeah, there's a lot there. I like design. That's a cool shot, Ken.
Why, thank you. And this is also
Why
from.
thank me? Because I said thank you. That's why. I gave you a compliment.
Yes, well, thank you. This is this is one of the room wings of the TWA hotel. As a matter of fact, last week you'd asked me what kind of plane it was. It was a Lockheed 1950s, late 50s Constellation. I had confused it with the Comet and said, "Oh, it might be a de Havilland," but it's not. It was a Constellation was the plane in the previous episode, and this is one of the wings. And in this particular photograph, I'm using perspective on the right, and the idea that these two halves of the photograph are being, they don't mirror each other, but they contrast one another. One side's flat, it's vertical. There's nowhere to go. You just go directly toward the wall, and that's it. And then on the other side, there's this huge arc. Once you go around the tree, your eye goes around and sees the glass, and so that's really there is to that particular photo. You may go to the next one unless you guys have anything to say. In this particular photo, this is an example of negative space. This was an engagement photo. The couple came to me. They asked me to create an old Hollywood glamour style photograph for them. They wanted to use that for their invites for their wedding. And so we worked on the lighting to make sure it was just right. And we have this big diamond shape between their faces and, the groom's tie and the shoulder of the bride. And that's where that black negative. So it's like a diamond, like an engagement diamond. And then the next photo.
Well, let's talk about this. And I'm figuring that this was originally photographed in color.
Yeah, well, the image was originally in color, but initially we wanted to make sure it was a black and white photo. That's what the request was, for a black and white old style glamour photo.
So is the use of black and white versus color a compositional element?
Oh, most assuredly, just as much as that yellow photograph of the bricks is a compositional element. I mean, the way that black and white photography creates this complete abstraction. I mean, because the world is not visually black and white for most of us, and by reducing everything to black, white, and various shades of gray, we are creating an abstraction that is partially illustrative, but the lens delineates so well that our minds accept what we see as a facsimile of reality. And it's a wonderful sort of interplay between reality and this medium that was created. And so when you take a photograph, a digital photograph that isn't black and white in color, if you know it's going to be black and white as a final image, one of the things that you do is you kind of think in terms of what it will look like in black and white ahead of time. I think most of the photographs people have today that are black and white are afterthoughts. But in this case, we knew initially it was going to be a series of black and white images.
Got it. Oh.
This I brought up as a sample of a compositional element called Arabesque. This model, you can see that there's a slight curve, so a little bit of an S curve to the figure. You can see basically between the hips and the knees, and then once again between the waist on the right side and the arms. And so that S movement that you see when you just look directly at the image is utilized quite a bit in portraiture, particularly of fashion models in gowns and other close-fitting clothing. And that's really what that is. So it's just an example of an arabesque.
What is the necessity for the drastic angles of the arms?
Well, what we did there is we're kind of showing that the dress allows for a waist. If you have someone standing for a photograph, you want to illustrate the clothing. That's the idea with a fashion photo, is to illustrate the clothes, how they should be worn, and how they should hang on the body. And in this particular case, you want to see that there's a taper from the shoulders to the waist, from the waist to the hips, and then and it flares out from the waist to the hips, and then once again you want to see the taper to the knees, and then ideally even from the knees down to the feet. And so that taper, that line, if you look at fashion illustrations, you'll see variants of that repeated over and over again. And that it's one form of fashion photography, but it's a very traditional, much more classical idea about how to illustrate how a garment will fit.
Right. And just to go into it just a little bit more, uh,
Mm-hmm.
was the position of the arms
Mm-hmm.
intentional at first, or was this how you came to this final image by going through various changes in what to do with her arms in the photograph?
Oh, this particular case, this model kind of knew some of the things that they wanted to do, and honestly, I don't remember. This is a few years ago, so I don't remember how much of what I instructed them to do and how much they brought to the session.
Mm.
But if you're working with a really good model, they will pose in a variety of ways, and they'll have ideas about how the clothing should hang on them and how clothing does hang on them, and they understand what they should do to illustrate maybe a pocket, a purse, a shoe. They understand, a pant leg, exactly what the neckline, what the item should look like on them. And so we photographed this in a gown shop. So we kind of understood at the same time that we wanted to show the gowns in their best light. And so in this case, putting the model's arms up really gave us an opportunity to show the flare of the shoulders and then the cinch at the waist.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, but go ahead.
It's just kind of interesting because of everything is within the frame is rounded with the exception of the angles of the elbows.
I was just going to say,
And so that it's like, and the thing about it is that they occupy the top portion of the image.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can sort of give the effect that she's hanging from the elbows if you want to play around with it a little bit, but that's where I'm going with it. But don't let that be the final answer. It's just an intriguing aspect into it because it's a pose that is very um, eccentric to right, and it's not a typical pose. So so I guess I'm going with it as you would see this more likely in upscale magazines more so than a catalog.
Well, even with a catalog, you would see. Well, first of all, the garment is different. Most catalogs don't have evening gowns. Most of them these days, they usually have casual wear. And then, secondly, and thank you, Ken. I appreciate the fact that you said that it was more upscale. That's much good to know. But I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I just got one question. I know you're an as is kind of guy, but I could be wrong. Was the shadow there, or did you add it?
You mean the one at the top, or the kind of the arced one?
The shadow to the right of the figure, looking, from
Oh
view.
no, that was there. That's a shadow on Seamless. I don't drop shadows or anything like that. No, I understand. I'm sorry. No. Believe it or not, I photograph with such a small amount of Photoshop. I mean, I might spot something to remove a blemish or something, but those big construction jobs, I tend not to do that kind of stuff. But I appreciate that. That the shadow is intentional, and it was, the model was that close to the backdrop.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I say that because I mean, design wise and compositionally wise, it works as a complete image because I mean, you didn't shoot her dead center. She's slightly using the rule of thirds. She's slightly to the left of the frame or the right of the frame. And then the shadow both draws your eye to the right of the frame and pushes her forward in space. So it design and composition wise, and then that dark area at the bottom again. I keep it keeps reminding me of the Columbia Pictures one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Entertainment. Yeah, you were thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, that's because the train twists and then flares at the bottom in a similar way.
And the elevated arms.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool shot. Very cool.
Thank you. And so this is a collage of 4 different photographs that I put together so that we can kind of see kind of all 4 of the things that I talked about kind of assembled. In the upper left-hand corner, that would be the closest to sort of the arabesque, because basically I'm letting the shape of the shoe, particularly the sole of the shoe, create that curve, that S curve that kind of helps define the shoe. And these were lit with spotlights. The upper right-hand corner, Greg, you mentioned the rule of thirds. This one's a little closer, where the logo of the sneaker is in the kind of the upper right-hand corner a little bit. Mm-hmm. And once again, we've got those lines that lead into it, but that's part of the sneaker. I mean, I can't take credit for the design of the shoe, but I can take credit for illuminating the parts of the shoe that really make it special. And in the lower left-hand corner, we have pattern, and we've got shape. We've got a sort of a gradient, right? We've got pattern.
You got me. You totally got me on that one. I thought that was like a satellite dish. I thought it was like, this is a high-tech shoe.
No, and you guys were talking about how it looks like a tire tread, the brick photos. This is really the idea that, this particular tread on a sneaker gives you the proper friction in order to run, well. These are Mizundo's. These are my sneakers. And then the lower right-hand corner is basically about perspective, where the others are a little bit more straightforward. Even the one on the upper right is a little bit more straightforward. This one is definitely about looking from the toe box along the side of the shoe, getting the logo and letting the, go off into the abyss. And that's really it.
Well, I agree with you on your use of you exploited the heck out of the compositional element of the negative space, forcing the shoe out of the black with minimal lighting. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. I mean,
and raking the light across something so that you're really forcing the eye to see like the patterns and the design and the color.
Right.
Spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Outer space. Floating.
Did you say outer space?
Yeah, I said outer space. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's where I go to when I look at these.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Oh gosh.
It's like a SpaceX launch.
Hey, that could be the sales pitch. Oh man, Greg's on tear.
Oh man.
Well, are you saying like so Ken, are you saying 2001 like they're like dated from like then, or from the movie, or reminiscent of the movie?
Oh, I'm just saying reminiscent of the movie.
Okay.
Dated because
they're probably more reminiscent of sneakerheads from 2001 too. So.
No, and again, anytime we see something floating in space or floating, that's where I go to. If it's floating, it's not outer space. Greg is having fun. All right, so
it's Halloween, man.
All right, so Greg, what do you got to close off with?
Oh, composition, man. Just open your eyes and just, they used to do this exercise. I don't remember what class it was. Yeah, you could grab your cameras and would just go around and look. Do not touch your camera. And it's like, this is a photography. It was just an exercise in seeing, and I really enjoyed that. And, seeing the relationships to do. And it's like in everything, you can see visual relationships in so much stuff if you look for it. So, compositionally, composition 102, just go out and shoot, enjoy, enjoy what you see, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And if you haven't voted already, vote. Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
Mark?
I'm good.
Good?
No, everything. This was really fun. I think that there's a troll who just wants to get his get going on his.
No place like home. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Sure, it's not a troll. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, it's great, and I guess we'll talk. We'll see you next time. That's fantastic.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. All right.
Wait. I got one more thing to say.
What?
The music I used last week was Michel Legrand's "Digoo Ding Ding," and that was not something we had the copyright for, but it was the only song we forgot to mention. And that was it.
Okay. Everybody knows this one.